Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's Australian Open finals catch up,
Sinner sinks Zverev for back-to-back AO titles.
Keys stuns Sabalenka for maiden crown.
And Siniakova and Townsend win their second slam together.
Kim, Chris, today is the 26th of January, and we are here to catch up on the finals of the Australian Open at Tennis Weekly HQ. Jannik Sinner and Madison Keys are your Australian Open 2025 singles champions, a pre-tournament favourite and a player who was in red-hot form leading up to the action in Melbourne. We're coming straight off of the men's finals. How are we feeling? We're now at the end. 2 weeks of glorious tennis down under is over. How are we doing?
It feels a bit like we've just kind of copied and pasted some of the results from last year into 2025. No big surprises on the men's side, but Madison Keys certainly sprang a few surprises on her run.
Yes, the men's final, bit predictable, I think. It wasn't
Didn't get
wasn't
going,
actually as
did it?
exciting as last year's, but yeah, it never really got going. So I think definitely the women's side bringing the entertainment factor a bit more than the men's this tournament. I think it's fair
Gave
to say.
Fritz Sinner US Open vibes, didn't it? I think we said the same thing. So we have to make sure we remain upbeat and positive despite the slightly predictable result.
Well,
Yes,
we can be positive about the fact that our crowdfund is so close to completion. Thanks everyone who has supported and donated to the Tennis Weekly crowdfund for this season. We have now reached a staggering £1,900, £1,900 of our £2,000 target. We are 95% of the way there. So, as I say, a big thank you for everyone who has contributed so far.
I'm also glad you did the maths there because I was trying to work out what percent that was. I was like, is it 90? No,
I have
it's
my
not.
calculator ready to
Crunch the numbers.
It's not in my day job.
Well, if you would like to donate and send us over our target, we're not sure if like confetti will come straight out the screen if that happens, but we would really, really appreciate it. We are so close and we're so appreciative of everyone who has donated. If you'd like to, the link is in the description. It's also gofundme.com/tennis-weekly 2025. Okay, I'll try that again. gofundme.com/tennis-weekly 2025. I think I didn't butcher the second one, Joel.
No, I don't think you did. And we'll put that link in the description. So if anyone has enjoyed our coverage over the last couple of weeks and wants to show their support for the podcast for this season, it really does go a long way. We are a by fans, for fans podcast. We want to keep our audience engaged and involved. And the money does go a long way in helping support the show throughout the season.
Absolutely. And yeah, massive thank you to everyone who's donated to get us up to that point so far as well. We couldn't do it without you. And big thank you as well to everyone who participated in our collect a set for this edition.
Well done, Joel.
We were down. Yeah, well done, Joel. I think you were the best out of
Let's
us.
get it out of the way early.
So...
I've got the slam spoon of shame, haven't I?
He didn't do the best, Kim. She's pretending she knew.
Yes, I'll send that slam spoon of shame over to you immediately. But we were down to a final two out of all our participants for the title. Alexandra McClelland and Mr. Tambourine Man 91 with 3 correct answers each. So it did go all the way to a tiebreaker. But of course, there could only be one winner, which was, drum roll please.
Roll please.
Mr. Tambourine Man,
Whee!
aka Stephen. So well done. Stephen will win a Tennis Weekly mug, which is coming to you soon. Look out for a message from us to arrange that. But yeah, well done. It was close, but Mr. Tambourine Man out on top. So congratulations.
Not the highest scoring round, was it? We were going for 6 out of 6. That's what we started the year thinking could happen. And we thought a few people could be on for 5, but 3 is no shabby effort at all.
No, absolutely. And thanks for everyone participating as always. I look forward to it for Roland Garros in a few months' time. It'll be on us before we know it, I suppose. But yeah, thanks for everyone playing again in Collector Set. And I guess without further ado, we do need to get our teeth into the men's final that just happened. Jannik Sinner doing the business, straight sets over Sacha Zverev. Very dominant on serve, especially. He did not face a single break point. What a way to defend your title here and clinch your 3rd Grand Slam title. Joel, was this a lot more straightforward than perhaps we were expecting?
Yes, I think yeah, it was a final in some ways like surprising and as maybe shocking as the Madison Keys result, but in the opposite way, because I was expecting this to go 4 sets or even go to the distance based on, you know, their head to head. They're very, very competitive. But in this match, Sinner and his Grand Slam finals record really kind of came to the fore. And although I don't think you could say Zverev choked or you know, didn't play to his best, like I think we've seen in previous finals that he's been in, it was just on the day. Sinner was a better competitor in all departments.
Yeah, we've seen Zverev in previous slams. You know, it's gone longer. It's been a bit more competitive. So he's sort of, you know, got a bit edgy, and especially that very first slam final he was in. But yeah, this time it was almost like he never really got into the match. It was just always kind of playing catch up. I mean, that second set tiebreak, do you think if that had gone his way, we might have seen a different story, Chris?
I think probably the same result, but I do think his head wouldn't have gone down. I think when you do lose a set where you put so much into it, and he had chances, he was very close, a couple of points away. Obviously, we not chance in the sense of break point chances, because we've actually discussed there was 0 for him, which is quite worrying, really, because Sinner is a great server. But I mean, Sinner did carve out an awful lot more break point chances. So I think whatever happened after that, the tie break, there would have been more chances for Sinner. Having said that, though, I do think we talked about the serve being so important. And even in that first set, I remember seeing some of the numbers that came up, and Zverev was making 81% of first serve, which is dream numbers for a slam final. That's pretty much as good as it gets from a serving perspective. But he was only winning 62% of those points. So that's not great when you think about it. Whereas Sinner, 71% of first serves in, very good stat, 85% won. So there is this question mark around, he's almost 7 foot tall. He's so tall, 6'5", I believe. And he's still not able to necessarily get those points that you would expect off the first serve. So if it had have continued and it had gone further, it does make you think that there would have always been chances for Sinner. But at the start, it didn't look like it was necessarily going to go this way. I did think that maybe there would be some damage that could be done. I thought Zverev started quite well before that break happened. But I mean, it is quite demoralizing to be in this situation and not carve out one opportunity to break.
I mean, that tie break, that net cord in the tie break felt like the turning point, because I was sort of sensing something, and that we might be going into kind of one set all, and it becomes like a best of 3 between the two. But when that net cord went in favor of Sinner, I think at 4 all in the tie break, it just felt like it took the wind out of Zverev.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shame for Zverev in a sense, because Jannik Sinner has won 21 straight matches now at hard court slams. I mean, funnily enough,
Incredible.
his last loss was to Zverev in 2023 at the US Open. But he's just, kind of bringing this dominance now to hard court slams. Also against top 10 opponents, he's had 10 straight wins without dropping a set. So, no shame for Zverev. He was up against Sinner, who's just really just dominating at the moment, especially on the hard courts. Question for you both, really. Where does Sinner go from here? Very comfortable on the hard courts, but how dominant is he really when it comes to all surfaces? Like where's he going to go from here? Surely his next focus has got to be, getting either Wimbledon or Roland Garros. What do you think, Joel?
Yeah, I certainly think that's an area that he can improve on, and he can take the confidence of winning the US Open at the back end of last season, the Australian Open now, into the clay swing. Of course, we still have hard court tournaments to come with the Sunshine Swing coming up, Indian Wells and Miami. But I do think, if he wants to show his dominance and be in this kind of status that he is pretty much, I think, in the world of his own at the moment, at the very top of the rankings. I do think he needs to be able to show that on a clay court and on a grass court, and arguably maybe there's more competition there with some of the other players around him, how they perform on those surfaces. That makes me think there's still challenges to come. It's not just hard courts and we're done. There's a lot more exciting opportunities for him.
It does make me think, are we going to get the Sinner Slam? We had this Aryna Slam where she won 4 consecutive slams twice in her career. Could that be possible? I've always thought personally, that Sinner on clay is actually really good. He's a really good mover. I think that's probably the surface he played most on when he was a junior and a youngster. I think where he grew up, it would have been indoor hard and then outdoor clay in the summer. So I think he's very comfortable on that surface. And when you're good on hard courts, you tend to be pretty good on the grass as well. So I think maybe some sickness has happened, against that Medvedev match from last year's Wimbledon. I don't think his game, I mean, it's not just it's a hardcore game. I think he can play on any surface. There's no problem there at all. But do you think that maybe Alcaraz could be the person who, again, could scupper his chances of just complete dominance? Because we talked about head-to-heads against players who've had history, juniors, friends. It feels like that's where it doesn't really matter what Sinner's ranking is or what his win streak is. Like going into, I think it was Indian Wells last year, he hadn't lost yet that season. Alcaraz hadn't really had form. Yeah. And then suddenly he got that win. It feels like that's more of like an individual rivalry. But in the world of tennis, he is head and above in the rankings. But in that rivalry, it's a bit more even.
Yeah, I think so. I think also you've got to look at, the last couple of weeks. I still think there's been, say, those physical vulnerabilities. Even in the final, we saw against Zverev, there were times where, he was clutching the top of his left leg, the shakes against Runa. And when you come onto the clay, one of the most physical, surfaces on the tour, if not the most physical, against someone like Carlos Alcaraz, who I'd still say has the physical edge over Jannik Sinner. I think it's a lot closer, and I still think maybe actually Carlos Alcaraz is still a bit more of the favorite, regardless of what rankings say. So I think that's a question that still I think also needs to be improved on, because it has been quite fascinating, the fact that we've seen him throughout the last couple of weeks sort of look like he's injured, not really sure, but at the end of the day, it didn't really matter.
Yeah. And I mean, his coach, Darren Cahill, is, I think, retiring at the end of this season. So how pivotal do you think that will be for Jannik Sinner kind of after this season, looking for a new coach or going coachless for a bit? Who knows? But do you worry that will have a negative impact on his game with the loss of Cahill, who has been, pretty influential? I think it's fair to say. Chris, should he be worried about this?
It's a big change. There's no denying it, but the fact that there is this longer period where it's not like it's ending now. There's a whole season of commitment.
Succession planning.
Yeah, yes. You can really almost, I'd imagine we start to see more people playing more of a role, or the head coach role, for example, or not necessarily head coach, but consulting coach, whatever you want to call the new role or the replacement role. We'll start to see more people potentially throughout the year. I think you've got time to build that camp and make sure that you feel good about it. So I don't think it will be too much of a difference in terms of Sinner's level, but I do think having Cahill in your corner and the person that brought this success to you in your game, I think that will be very different for him not seeing him in his box. So that is definitely going to be a challenge. But we've seen, whatever Sinner goes through, whether it's the doping situation that's ongoing, I mean, that came out and he won the US Open in emphatic style. The man is mentally very, very resilient. He's almost able to switch it all off. So I do think that in these moments, he will still have the edge, but it is obviously a blow. But, you can't expect coaches and situations not to change. It's how you adapt. And he's showed at every stage he's good at adapting.
Yeah. And I mean, let's take a quick reflection on Sacha Zverev as well. He's now got a trio of Grand Slam kind of final losses. He's almost at the career runner-up slam. If he just gets to the Wimbledon final and loses, he will be have completed all four.
So set you don't want to collect.
Is he ever going to do it? And do you think he, could he be like the best player to have never won a slam but come, so close with all these finals? Joel?
Yeah, I think he's definitely in that spot at the moment. And just talking about the coaching situation, it reminds me of when Andy Murray was in a similar spot, and he brought Ivan Lendl on board, because Ivan Lendl went through a similar run of runner-ups at Grand Slams before he started winning Grand Slam trophies. And it has got me thinking with Andy Murray in Djokovic's corner, if there's someone that Zverev needs to bring, he would probably love to bring someone maybe like an Andy Murray on board, because of all of that hurt he went through in order to get his first Grand Slam title. Because for him, it's a very similar path. The only the one positive I would say from this result is that, as I said, I don't think he mentally lost it, or he was in a position to win it and he lost it. It was just a case of the better player won on the day, and I don't think that was necessarily the case in the other two slam finals he been in. I feel like he had more chances with that, but I do think it's going to become tougher though, particularly for him with still Sinner, Alcaraz, maybe even Djokovic. It's still going to be a very tough battle.
He did say that Jannik Sinner was just too good today, and that Jannik Sinner is just the best tennis player on the planet at the moment. And I mean, the numbers would suggest that he was. And in this final, for example, I think there is elements of your game that you can control. And so I think coming out of this loss, I think there will be the disappointment that, for example, the serve didn't do the damage that it probably, or he would have liked it to. So I think there are things that he could look at and work on. I do think, as you say, like he wasn't really necessarily in this one in the same way he has done previously. And I think maybe because of the fact he's playing against someone where they are that good, that maybe his brain allowed him to maybe think, you know what, it's okay to not win it, or it's not like you'd be disappointed. Whereas I felt like the other two, he really felt like he could win. And you have to believe that you can win at all stages to get a slam. And he was so disappointed at the end. I think I saw the scene where he was almost kind of like crying or like tearing up, and Jannik gave him a little pep talk. I think probably saying something like, you're going to do it. You did a great job, and words to that effect. And I think it is that case where it can get into the scar tissue of it. We've seen it with Ons Jabeur, for example. It can become a big barrier. So the question would be, is the mental barrier bigger than the fact that the physical or the actual challenge of doing it or his game is good enough? It's just that as a package, he might not be the complete package.
Yeah, I think it's the circumstances might fall for him. I mean, obviously he came close with that Dominic Thiem final, but it seems to be getting less and less close each time now. But yeah, I think today it was just a story of Sinner too good. But it may well happen at some point, but he's going to have, I think, a bit of luck if things are continuing as they are. I mean, we do have to just quickly talk about as well after the match, before Zverev spoke in the ceremony, there was some heckling from the crowd as well, in relation to the domestic violence allegations against Zverev. So I think there was one individual in the crowd who said, "Australia stand with Olya and Brenda," referring to the two previous partners of Zverev who have, made the allegations. Bit awkward, wasn't it? But obviously we can't ignore the fact that those allegations, I think Zverev settled them in court last year, or out of court, I should say. I think it was in the end. But, there's always that shadow, obviously, hanging over Zverev, isn't there? So the fact that someone brought it up today was kind of like, yeah, we can't ignore that that's still, not ongoing sort of legally, but ongoing in our sort of view of him.
Yeah. That's it was a very awkward moment. I think it's one where quite often in the sport, what goes on off court and what goes on court are normally more separated. I think that's definitely quite unusual. There's no denying he's not a fan favorite globally. I think when it comes to playing at home, I've seen him in Hamburg and he is worshipped there. So there is a lot of people who will not be supporting Zverev based on those allegations that were made. Obviously, it was settled, the case with Brenda, that was settled. And so there is no criminal, there's nothing criminal that's been decided on in that respect. It didn't get to that point. So I think it was strange, the audience and crowd reaction. They were quite shocked by it. And rather than cheer, normally they try and drown out the noise by kind of cheering or kind of, I think it took a while for people to realize what it was about. But I also think there's such a low awareness of that as well. So ultimately, it is a big shame that those things are brought up in this forum, because it isn't just, the court of public opinion that should be deciding it. And again, he has been competing as a tennis player. So again, I don't think there's a place for that at these moments. I don't like the protests at these events either. And I think this probably falls into a similar camp, because if he's allowed to compete and there's nothing against him, then I do think that you shouldn't be necessarily be ruining the event for the people who are here.
Yeah, no, well said. And let's move on to the doubles action, because a really fantastic result for Great Britain with Henry Patten, with his Finnish partner, Harri Heliovaara, winning the men's doubles at the Australian Open. It's their second AO title. Sorry, it's not second AO title, second slam after winning Wimbledon last year. And they had a bit of a battle to get this one done. They really should have got it done, maybe arguably in 2 sets. They squandered 10 set points in the first set, but they did come through in 3 sets, just over 3 hours. So really fantastic men's doubles final out on there. And yeah, a real shining kind of star in British doubles now with Henry Patten. Joel, how does this kind of play into Davis Cup? You know, Henry Patten, is he going to be at the forefront of the team selection?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think great result for him. I was really worried about that first set because, as I say, that tiebreak went so long. They had so many chances, but to see them kind of come through in 3, that was a really credible result against a strong team. And similar for Siniakova and Townsend in the ladies doubles as well. The number 1 seeds, they had a fantastic result against another stellar doubles team in Sueche and Ostapenko. So some great performances all round in 3 sets, as well as for Guidetti
great finals, right? Proper thrillers. I feel like that makes it so much more fun, and doubles is so fun to watch on this platform. One thing to clear up, he is not in the Davis Cup team. It is actually Skupski and Salisbury who are trying out a partnership together, who will be playing against Japan. And so that's quite a question for another day, maybe a question after that Davis Cup result, of seeing who do we think, because there's so much strength and depth in doubles, and it's not necessarily from the people who have been at the top in the last couple of years. There's some real rising stars there.
Maybe we should just adopt Heliovaara, get him to change nationality.
He's a very proud Finn. Yeah, exactly.
He will be in the double selection. Aussie mixed doubles as well. They were quite dominant. Guidetti and Piers winning the mixed over Birrell and John Patrick Smith. So yeah, home favourites winning the mixed there as well. But we do have one thing before we go to a break and to the ladies' final roundup, which we actually did record yesterday, in full disclosure. We want to do a quick peek, hit and pleasant surprise for our kind of highlights and lowlights of the tournament, and the thing that surprised us the most. So I'm going to come to you both in turn and we'll see what we've all got to say. So let's do peak first. Let's start positive. What was kind of your highlight of the tournament? Joe, I'm going to start with you first.
I'll be very quick, but it was Zverev having a meltdown over a feather on the tennis court. I just thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious, and I loved every second of it.
Okay, excellent. So we've got a bit different in our approaches. That's quite a small aspect of the tournament. I actually went for one personal one of getting rid of the slam spoon of shame for the first time since its invention and inception. I've had it relentlessly, so this is a big moment for me. Finally, a prediction came true. But I'd also say that sort of final tie break and that sort of last bit of Swiatek Keys was just absolute fire.
Yeah, I've gone for Madison Keys myself, just winning the whole thing. You know, what a dominant start to the year, finally living up to kind of her full potential, getting a slam, doing it in style as well, and tough, digging in. And I think also for me, having Andy Murray back in his sort of new Djokovic coach capacity has sort of been real interesting to see. And I think they are having some time, and then they're going to discuss where they go next if he stays with Djokovic. So I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome of that. Right, low lights next. Pit, Joel.
Very quickly again, no VAR being used in that double bounce controversy between Navarro and Swiatek.
You love a dramatic moment, Joel. I just thought Djokovic being booed, did not like the crowd this tournament. I think it was a big letdown.
Yeah, I've gone for kind of the crowd, and I think the comments in the media from Tony Jones, I thought I was just not on. So that was kind of
not it.
No. And last but not least, pleasant surprise, Joel.
It's Gael Monfils reaching the second week after winning the title in Auckland, oldest ATP champion. Yeah, loved him to continuing on that form.
Chris?
I just think I wrote Jack Draper 5-set legend because he just kept going. I think that was so great to see that, not being in a great situation beforehand, he still showed everybody he could do it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I was thinking of that, and I went for a British theme anyway. Henry Patten in the doubles, obviously, and Alfie Hewitt winning the wheelchair singles, and Hewitt and Reed winning the wheelchair doubles as well. So lots of British success actually down under, which is fantastic. So let's take a quick break now, but do join us in the second half where we'll be looking at the ladies' final, where Madison Keys stunned Aryna Sabalenka to win her maiden Grand Slam title. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast and our Australian Open finals catch up. And we obviously have to talk about the very exciting ladies' final that's happened on Saturday, with Madison Keys winning her first Grand Slam title after so many years in the business. She's finally gone and done it. And what a match to do it in. 7-5 in the third set over the two-time defending champion and world number one, Aryna Sabalenka. Chris, I'm going to come to you first because special credit. This was your bold prediction at the start of the tournament, Madison Keys to win. And it's gone and happened. Congratulations.
I know. Thank you. I can't take too much credit for this because we do many different predictions on the pod. It is just a case that, when Madison is playing her best tennis, she can beat anyone, and she has done previously. But to do it back to back, I think that's where we talked about it. And you said it's not beyond the realm of possibility. And that's how I felt about it at the time. And clearly it isn't, Kim, because it has actually happened.
It has. And I mean, she has had a remarkable tournament. That match against Swiatek in the semi-finals alone, saving match point, which you guys, spoke about in the semi-final catch up. But it's just, amazing stuff. She won that first set and Sabalenka responded in kind, kind of dominating that second set. Going into the third, Joel, where were you thinking? Were you thinking, Sabalenka's going to get this because she's got the experience, she's done this many times?
I was.
Were you picturing it going that way?
Yeah, before this tournament, and really for me, the story of a lot of matches that go three sets for Madison Keys is that she's not been the greatest at handling the big moments, and when it comes down to crunch time, it's usually her opponent that comes through in the victory. But what I think has been so impressive about her run is all the three setters that she's been in and all the three setters that she's won, including this match against Sabalenka, because you would have thought, again, Sabalenka having all the momentum, winning that second set 6-2 and just sort of running away with it and creating history. But the fact that she was able to kind of stay in the moment, stay in the zone and take that moment at the end of the third set to break, it just shows, I think, in terms of that kind of that maturity and that evolution, I think that she's had from previous seasons, that when it does get to that third set, that she is able to handle it and then go and take it as well. And that is what we saw against Sabalenka right at the end. This is her moment. I'm going to leave everything out on court. And you just saw those winners in those last Sabalenka games. I mean, pretty fearless stuff to do, not just putting the ball back in play. She was really going for it.
It was so brave. And that's how I think I describe her whole run. Even when Swiatek was coming back, match points, she hit so big. I mean, we're talking painting the lines, going for broke at times, you feel. And that's something where I'll ask you, Kim, the last final that she played, obviously 2017 US Open, she won 3 games. Do you think that memory just made her think, I've got to leave everything on the court. I can't let the same thing happen again this time?
Yes, because obviously that was against one of your favourites.
It was, yeah.
Stevens. That feels like a lifetime ago.
It does. It's for Sloane fans.
Funnily enough, that was the year that Keys, I think, started dating her now husband and coach, Bjorn Fratangelo. So it's sort of
long time coming.
It's like tail ended by these slam finals. But what a different outcome this time round. And I think, do you think, I memean, that win against Swiatek, saving that match point coming through, how much confidence do you think that alone gave her coming into the final, thinking, I've beaten Swiatek, I've beaten Svitolina, Rybakina, I've come through these really high caliber opponents, really tough matches, I'm battle hardened, I'm ready, I've had that experience 7 years ago, that didn't go well at all, I'm determined to make a different outcome this time. But how crucial do you think coming through in that semi was sort of for the final moments of this match?
I think
Chris?
very, very important. I also think that she's almost playing a bit like Maria Sharapova, where I think genuinely it is almost like a factory reset. Like every point, she's just taking it point by point and not thinking because she missed the last one, she shouldn't go for this one. I think that's what's quite different about this Madison Keys, because previously we have seen her almost look like she doesn't believe she's going to make it or believe she's going to win. And this has been the perfect tournament showing in these 3-set matches, really tough 3-set matches she's had. I mean, I think Roos in the second round, she could have gone out. That was 7-5 in the third, which we kind of forget that result. And then she came through against Collins, against Rybakina, as you've said, Svitolina, Swiatek, all of these big names. She's proven herself that she can handle those moments, even a match point down. So I think it's so important to the mentality that she was able just to think, you know what, I've triumphed against everything. Why can't I win this? There's no reason for it.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've seen a player be match point down at some point in the tournament and go on to win. She's actually the 16th player in the Open era, so it doesn't happen too often.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, I know. Swiatek last year at Roland Garros, she did it.
Remember that well.
That was, I guess, against Osaka. She had that match point down and went on to obviously win the title. So it's it just shows the resilience of champions, people that can come through, make their way through after those moments, and just really seize the opportunity. And Madison Keys, a lot of talk kind of going on about her age as well. She's 29, which I still think sounds remarkably young, but she is the 4th oldest woman to win her first Grand Slam title. So again, it just shows that if people are kind of going to break through and win their first slam, it does tend to happen at an earlier age. And it's about time for Madison Keys. And I wonder if it will inspire maybe other players who are sort of have been in her shoes to think, well, actually, if it can happen for Keys, it can happen for me. But Joel, did you ever see this day coming? Did you think Madison Keys had it in her and we were just, waiting for everything to fall into the right place?
Do you know what? The longer it has gone on, particularly from her first Grand Slam final appearance to this Grand Slam final appearance, I was getting more and more towards, if not now, when territory. And I was interesting to read that, she's made some changes over the off season. She switched her racket from Wilson to Yonex. And I think, it shows, and I've been reading about how it's given her more control in her game. And again, I think that added control that maybe was not there before has helped her kind of reach these moments. And I just think it's interesting how she's probably been given one of the toughest runs like ever to reach and win a Grand Slam title. Listeners, let me know if you think there are any other harder runs a player has been on to win a Grand Slam trophy. Let us know. But the fact that she's done it through like the hardest environment and matchups possible, I just think just shows how much she has improved and how much she's been ready at every moment. Because again, I think a few seasons ago, I was in this point of, but can she do it 7 matches in a row? And in this tournament, she's just proven that. The fact that she's gone the distance in 5 of them, beaten 4 top 10 opponents, the run itself just shows how much she has improved, particularly, I think, in a kind of a 2-week tournament where, the consistency and the control, it sort of counted against her, I felt like, in previous tournaments before, when we felt like she was maybe a second week staple, but could she go and kick on? Probably not.
Do you think it's injury related? Because that's obviously been something that has kind of marked her whole career. Unfortunately, she's had so many injuries and so many of those moments where you think she's going to do something, and even in those slams or in those big matches, she's actually had to pull out, and something terrible has happened from that perspective. So for a 29-year-old player who's been around for so long, it could be a bit like, Serena won so many slams after she was 30. It could also be a case that, things come together at different times, and potentially, she's got the Yonex racket, her body seems to be holding up. This could be something really, really exciting for the future. And maybe it's a case that she's younger than her years in terms of the fact she has been injured, but also the fact that she's done it after so many appearances. She's also got a lot of experience, which could really help her moving forwards.
Yeah, because she won, I think, Adelaide coming in, didn't she? So she's on this incredible streak. And we've seen her kind of go on little flashes and streaks before. But it's that maintaining that physicality, especially over a Grand Slam, and just the emotions and intensity.
And I think especially since winning the title before the Grand Slam, we don't normally
associate. That's a curse, isn't it?
It's not
associate players who win.
We write them off immediately.
Yeah, like it's
they're going to retire first round, something like that, Like
she's effectively been on a tear the last 3 weeks. So yeah, it just shows, I think, that, the momentum and the confidence that she's playing with, and even to playing the week before doesn't matter, but
Yeah.
to other
It's a lot of tennis, isn't it? And also, like, I have to say, in that match, obviously, we're talking a lot about the fact that Keys got the win. But when I was watching, I was also looking at some of the stats. And going into that final game, Sabalenka was actually up in terms of points won. That's how close it was. And it does just make you think, Sabalenka obviously had that racket smash. We don't often see that in a Grand Slam final. I think we saw it when she lost to Coco, but she was filmed behind the scenes. And this time she thought, I guess I'm filmed everywhere, wherever I go anyway. So I may as well just smash it out on court. But I do just think that it was on a knife edge. And so is that what makes the difference in these? It's just a couple of points here and there. She could have lost in the semi-finals. She could have also lost this. Sabalenka could have won it. And so is it a case that you need to be playing fantastic tennis, but it also has to go in your favor on the night?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of that, isn't it? It comes down to the finest of margins, especially in these dramatic Grand Slam finals. And for Keys, it's happened on the semi-final and the final, and she's only the fourth player this decade to have beaten both the world number one and world number two in the same tournament. And what a way to do it at the Australian Open as well. Yeah. And I think, for Madison Keys, we're talking about her age, but she's been around a while. She's a very consistent player. Generally, obviously, she's had injuries aside. This was her 46th Grand Slam main draw appearance. There have been two players who have won a slam with more appearances prior to getting that first slam. Can either of you name who those players might be?
I honestly think I can, but that's only because they made such a big deal of it at the time about Marion Bartoli. They were like, yeah.
Was it Flavia Pennetta as well?
Flavia Pennetta, yeah. Flavia Pennetta was her 49th appearance, Bartoli at 47. So Keys is in that kind of that realm. And obviously both of those players pretty much retired
immediately.
Straight after. I don't feel like Madison Keys is going to
I think she's got more to do, right?
She's got more to do.
They were probably older as well, weren't they? I think they were probably into their 30s, like 33 potentially, and maybe a little bit older. So it is remarkable because, as we said this on the last pod, she kind of broke through as like a teenager, like a 14, 15-year-old. And I talked about it that she beat Serena Williams at World Team Tennis. Obviously, it's not on the tour, but it has been talked about for so long. And when I spoke to her in Eastbourne, she almost felt like it was that frustration of she didn't know if she would be able to do it, not because she didn't have the belief, but because she didn't know if her body would. She skipped the Olympics because she was trying to think about her body, because she's not, as she said, 19. She's 29 now. So I think it is just remarkable when you see someone who is almost down and out go on that run, similar to what Sloane did, where she was injured. She came back, put it all together again. And it does just make you think that for anyone in the locker room, they'll be hugely inspired by, the stories of Keys, the stories of Pennetta, and the stories of Bartoli. It just shows if you're playing your 49th, probably not your 50th, if Flavia did it on the 49th, if that's the record, there will still be chances for you.
Yeah, 10 years ago, Madison Keys got to the semi-finals in Australia at, age 19. That was really kind of her announcing herself. And so 10 years later, finally a champion at a Grand Slam. I have to talk about her coach. Obviously, it's her husband, Bjorn Fratangelo. They decided to team up last year in terms of him being her coach. There was even a new thing at the Australian Open as well. They were giving a coaching award out kind of prior to giving the main trophy. What did you guys make of that? It was sort of a bit awkward, perhaps. I'm not sure I particularly like this new setup, but obviously full credit to her coach and husband, because he's obviously made a good impact since they've actually teamed up in this kind of new capacity. Chris, what are your thoughts on their relationship and how that's impacted Madison's tennis?
Well, they got married over the off season, so I feel like sometimes being really happy off court can breed happiness on court, and I think that
works.
It does for now. Maybe
we'll all win Grand Slams.
Get married, and then the honeymoon period. That's what I'm telling you. It's important. Get married just before a slam. So, or actually, maybe that's bad advice, because I remember JPEG got married, didn't play on the grass, and then went out quite early at Wimbledon. So maybe that's not
marriage
always...
doesn't work.
We're on the fence here, but 50-50. But either way, I think being happy really does help your tennis as well. And I think working with someone who you really trust, and maybe there have been people that she's worked with before who haven't quite been able to get that same level of commitment or the same feeling that she has with her life partner. That's a really special bond. So I think that's nice. I think I'm probably gonna maybe bow to Joel for his opinion on the trophy side of it for the coach, because I'm a bit lost for words.
It was very weird and surprising, the fact that they went to this first before like the main
What would
event.
they say? Yeah.
Yeah, it felt really awkward.
Well done, babe.
I know. And also it's like they're gonna get a shout out anyway and it probably means that more actually coming from the player. So it felt a little bit, the positioning of it felt a little bit awkward in the ceremony. And I hope they organizers reflect on that and think about where to do this and maybe do it maybe do it separately. We want to hear, we've just had a Grand Slam champion for the first time. We want to hear what they're saying, and they're going to talk about their coach. So let's do it that way, as opposed to sort of trying to shoehorn it in.
He was very respectful, though. I guess he didn't run away as quickly as possible, didn't he? So I think it didn't impact it, but maybe that is a lesson going forward. But it did make me think. I was going to say Naomi Osaka. Remember when she Sacha Bayin was her coach, and she basically said that he doesn't help her at all and didn't really rate him as a coach at one point. And they had just come off the back of winning slams. So it does kind of make me think maybe they wouldn't want that person to get a trophy based on that achievement. And maybe that's more what the WTA awards are for at the end of the year. But I mean, very strange on that front. But I thought from Sabalenka, I love it when she talks to her box. I think it's so funny, her relationship with her coaches. And if she loses, she blames it on them. And if she wins, it's all her.
I feel like she's like the most real with her coaching team. They have like such a fun dynamic, it seems, but also probably very serious at the same time. And I guess I'm just a little bit sad we didn't get like a new dance,
TikTok
dance from the champion. But I mean, just quickly on Sabalenka, where do you think she does go from here? Because everyone was talking about the three-peat and record setting, her appearances and her record on hard courts at Grand Slams. Do you think this is just a blip, and it came, as you said, down to a matter of points, and we just kind of move on? It is going to sting in the immediate future, but she'll get over it and move on.
Big question.
Tricky one, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, she's too good a player, I think, to suddenly have a meltdown and go off just because she's lost this final. She lost that one to Coco Gauff about 18 months ago, I think it was, at the US Open. But this was very much her tournament, wasn't it? She was so dominant in Australia, going for 3 in a row, which doesn't happen very often. Perhaps the stats were going to tell us that she wasn't going to do it. But no, I don't think it'll be a massive impact on her year or her season. But I mean, what I'd like to see from Sabalenka is her winning and focusing on a non-hard court slam anyway. So I think that should really be her focus for the year.
Yeah, she didn't play it last year, and she's got the game for it. Great at volleying. I think with this final, it's quite different to the Coco Gauff final that she lost, because Sabalenka went into meltdown, I think, in that. Take nothing away from Coco, because the plan was make her play, make her beat you, get everything back in that final. And I think with this one, it was a case that Madison was just striking the ball with such authority that it wasn't like she got a consistent rhythm. And normally she's the one dictating. So it did become a, miss or risk losing the point, or if you don't go for it, it could also go the other way. So it's a bit different. It's more of a shootout, isn't it? Than it is anything else. And if you make more than you miss, we talked about this before, but Sabalenka's going to have so many more opportunities. Like the last 5 hard court slam finals, she also goes on deep runs at all the other majors, whether she's fit or whether she's not. So she'll have more chances. And I think actually she brought herself together so nicely afterwards. Really lovely words about Madison. After that racket smash, she was just a picture of class. And I really just think that she has her head screwed on in the right way. She understands what's happened here. Could have gone either way. Won't be too down on herself. She did really want it. But at the same time, I think she's going to win it again.
Yeah, you think this time next year she'll put that behind her?
I think so.
Pick up the trophy again. Final question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I have to say this. I've been dying to say this, and I was actually hoping Sabalenka would win so I could say this and tweet it. Rod Laver Aryna.
Oh, I get what you're trying to do.
Yes.
She's going to win many more, I think.
I'm sort of envisaging there was a cake or something maybe behind the scenes that was
all
ready
those big designers quickly drawing it.
The number 3.
Yeah. They'll have to wait.
The three-peat Nike merch is on pause.
To the archives.
I mean, Madison Keys, so final question. Will she win another slam? Yay or nay?
That's really hard to know. If I was going to say, will she win another one? I think it's probably. Here we go. It's so hard to back it up. And that's what I'm going to go with. The fact that it's taken her a significant period of time to get here makes me think that there is a bigger chance that she could do more. I think when you win it earlier, it's harder to win another one. Like Raducanu, for example, Ostapenko, you can end up being a one slam wonder in that respect. The biggest thing will be, will she fall into the Flavia Pennetta and the Marion Bartley camp where all of your dreams have come true and that is everything you worked for and you feel like you've completed tennis for you personally? I don't think she will. I think she will keep fighting for these big trophies. The draws are going to get better, and I think there's a real chance she can. Will she, is what you asked, though. I think I'm going to say that she will.
Oh, I like the positivity. I mean, I think her husband's going to want more coaching awards, so
Yeah.
I think the two of them together could be a force to be reckoned with.
I mean, the run she went on, I've also got to say yes, because that she's going to have the belief that regardless of how the draw falls, the projections, whoever her opponents are, she can look back on this Australian Open and be, I came through the absolute ringer here, 3-set matches, match point down against some of the best players in the world, Sabalenka, Swiatek, Rybakina, touted as, I've got to say it, the new big three in women's tennis.
What about Coco Gauff?
And Coco Gauff, yeah. I mean, who is Keys going to, come up and be the new American number one and usurp Gauff? Who knows? But I think because of the run she went on, I would.
How could you say no
How
at this
could you say
point?
no?
That would be absurd. Yeah.
Well, that brings us to a close, I think, for our ladies' final segment.
Indeed, it does. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our Australian Open round by round catch up with Tennis Weekly. We will be back, of course, back into tour catch up mode from next week. So I do hope you can join us for that. I hope you've enjoyed this latest episode, though, this finals catch up of the Tennis Weekly podcast. As always, remember to subscribe to us, stay up to date on all the action to come as we go back onto the ATP and WTA tours.
We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all major podcasting platforms out there. So if you like what you're hearing, then do make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Plus, you can like and subscribe to us on YouTube and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future catch-ups.
And just a quick note that our GoFundMe is still very much live. It will be closing after the Australian Open. So do make sure, if you would like to support us, that you get in that support just in time. And you can also follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. And the handle for all of those is Tennis Weekly Pod. That final bag didn't sell out, Joel. So there's still a chance we could put it in your backdrop. If you'd like to get it before Joel does, it's etsy.com/shop/Tennis Weekly Podcast. You can email us tennisweeklypod@gmail.com or check out our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back next time at Tennis Weekly HQ for a tour catch up. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Kiss. Oh, I said that. Wait, sorry. Ugh. I knew we were going to have one little. Okay. It's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.